Hello and welcome back to the channel and another video about the construction of phase 2 of Heaton Lodge Junction. Now, before I go any further, big thank you to all of you that have subscribed in the last few months, because I think we have just hit over 7,000 subscribers, which is phenomenal, seeing as I've only just been doing these videos, regularly at least for the last few months. So thanks for that. And they give me an enormous amount of inspiration too, so it works both ways. Moving on, we're just going to be covering in today's video the cooling towers, at least the base of one, which I've set up just behind the camera. We're going to be painting that PVA and a concrete colour. And I've set it up actually just next to the layout to give you an idea of scale when it's next to the HAA wagons you can see in the picture as well. We're going to be doing a bit of static grass on the puddles that we did in the diorama a few weeks ago. We're also going to be finishing the tarpaulin that we did last week. And last but not least, we are going to be looking at Accurascale's first foray into 7mm O-gauge diesel locomotives. And it comes in the form of an exquisite little Ruston diesel shunter. More on that later. Let's get cracking and hold on tight. So many of you that watch my videos will have seen the turbine hall or the power station hall, which is over there. It's just going to get added to in the next couple of weeks because all the walkways are being done, all the drain pipes. There's tons of detail to add to these, and it'll really transform that, especially when it's painted in the correct colours too. But if we pan over, and you can see how big that is. Now, if you pan over, or if we pan over, here is the base of the cooling tower number 1. And as you can see, a bit of a problem in the basement as the base itself is there and the roof is kind of there. So there's no way I'm ever going to be able to fit the whole thing on the layout, at least in the basement. But that was always the intention because it is what it is. When the layout goes out, the cooling towers will be added later on. But it just gives you an idea of scale. And if I just pan in to the little O-gauge figure there by Model U, you can just see how big, panning out again, the cooling tower base is. It's absolutely huge. So basically when the public come and see this, they're going to walk in and they're going to be shocked and they're going to be hopefully awestruck, and lots of other people will want to come and see it as well. So that's the base of the cooling tower. Now, Rob, who actually sculpted this out of a very hard form of polystyrene, has said that you really need to paint this PVA, which I'm going to do now. I'm just going to start it off in front of the camera. And then next week, we're going to paint the base in a concrete colour. And I'm also going to spray primer on these lattice girder sections at the bottom and paint those concrete too. But that just gives you, I'm just going to pan out again because I keep shaking my head in disbelief when I come down here in the morning and just think, what the hell are you doing? But I really, really like seeing that cooling tower base. It's just such a shame that the basement is no higher, but I guess it is what it is. But when the layout goes out, wherever it goes, those cooling towers are going to be there in their entirety. So there we have it. Just one other thing, actually, while we're talking, because I've never mentioned the smokestack. Now, the smokestack, as you'll see it popping up on your picture now, on your video rather, the smokestack is always present with power stations. It's there to take out or take away the impurities. But the one that I'm building at the minute, which I'm not going to let you into too much this week, is 6 meters high. So that's about the height of probably a telegraph pole. That's going to be built in sections, and that is going to be, well, wherever the layout goes, somewhere like the NEC, for example, way into the future, 6 meters is generally okay in most of the NEC halls. So it will be there, complete with flashing red beacons warning aircraft to keep away from it. And yeah, we'll talk more about the smokestack in later videos. But there's the cooling tower, and I just thought it'd be nice to see it at the same height of the railway, and you'll be able to see it kind of gives you an idea of just exactly how big it is. So let's get cracking and start painting it, or painting the PVA onto the polystyrene. Right, let's just get back to our tarpaulins that we were doing last week. So for those of you that didn't catch up on that video, haven't seen it, all we did, I'm just going to recap really quickly, is just lay on dry toilet roll, as so, literally just like that, and then we just painted it in a mixture of 50% water mixed with PVA and then I've let it dry for the last few days, and we're left with this here, which is actually, doesn't look very good, but it's the basis of a really good tarpaulin. So what we're going to do next, I'm just going to get some paint, because it's ready for painting now. It's all dry, and very simply we're just going to, well, I'm just going to paint this. I think I'm going to go for a khaki colour with this particular one, and I'll probably do a blue for one I've got just next to me. Just got to be careful trying to get in the camera this week. So we're just going to paint this, and you can see that toilet roll, when it's dry, picks out all the indentations of what is underneath it, in this case model steel load. So in fact, I'm just going to turn this on its side so I can see it from this side. I really like Tamiya paint. It's really well, I think the term is pigmented. It's got lots of coverage in a small jar. It's acrylic, so it dries really quickly. I've still not worked out, after about 20 years, how to spray it properly. I usually stick to enamels to spray, but the Tamiya paint for painting with a brush like this really is super. Now I might have spilt a little bit of this khaki paint on the actual wagon, but it doesn't matter because it's well weathered, and it's probably going to get weathered even more when this is finished. You can see actually already how this is almost dry, and it's only just gone on, and it already looks super duper. Somebody actually mentioned in the comments of putting cling film underneath the toilet paper, so you could actually lift the toilet paper off and use it for another load, and I think that's a great idea. I might use that in the next episode. So there we go. You can see what I've been doing, or what I'm doing here. This is going to be khaki, and when it's dry it'll look super. You've got the gist of it. I'm going to do another one actually. I'll let that dry for a second and we'll come back to it. This one here, we just need to cut the ends off, so I'm just going to use a scalpel to literally do exactly that. It's amazing how stiff it makes the loo roll. Does this PVA. I'm just going to pull it off. There we go. Do you know what? I was just thinking as I was doing this that tarpaulins, even some of them are ragged at the ends and everything else, so just rip it off. Be right. This end, I'll just try and, that's a little bit better. There we go. That side facing that camera's okay. So I think I'm just going to get another brush, and I'm going to do this one a nice blue. Would help if I actually got a brush. So yeah, this is a Tamiya. What colour's this? This is royal blue. And again, as soon as I start putting this paint on, it's soaking in really well and drying almost immediately. And all there is left to do once these are done, oops, spilt a bit on the cargo wagon itself, but not to worry. You see how these little slats that I've put to divide, you can just see them there, the slats that they're basically matchsticks that I've put between the steel girders underneath to divide them, which apparently is what gets done on the real thing. They've poked through, but that's actually not a bad thing. I think it will just add to the realism. What you don't want is everything to look too neat and tidy. So anyway, you get the gist of this. I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to do this off camera, otherwise you'll be bored senseless, literally watching paint dry. and we'll see in a few minutes when this is dried what they look like. Right, so we're back again with the tarpaulins. Now let's have a closer look at this one. This is the one we did in the khaki kind of buff colour. But, I mean, how good does that look? It really does look the part. And I've actually painted it in two colours, to be honest. I started doing the khaki and then I ran out of paint. So then I started doing buff on top of it. But it's just dried in such a way that it just looks even more realistic. So, you know, for good old toilet roll, you can't really go far wrong, can you? That looks absolutely brilliant. Let's have a look at the royal blue one. Probably not quite. It's probably a bit too bright blue, if I'm honest, is that. But I can easily paint it a kind of a duller blue. But I think there are companies that actually have bright blue tarpaulins with their logo on, but because that hasn't got a logo on, it's probably better doing it in this kind of colour here. But I really think that looks superb, really does. The only thing we need to do now is to obviously drape the chains over it. I've just ordered some more chains. I said last week that these come from Cornwall Muddle Boats. They do loads of rigging and all sorts of things for all sorts of different sailing ships and that. I'd run out of chains, but I'm just going to, when they arrive in the post, I'm just going to drape probably 6 chains over these tarpaulins, the full length. This is one I did incidentally a couple of years ago, and it just covers half the load. Again, you can see the chains over the top, but it's just that, it's just the, what do you call it, the way that the toilet roll actually adheres to the load underneath is just superb. It really looks the part. So this is one I've done in the past too, which ran at Wakefield Exhibition a few years ago. So I think I'm going to end up doing all the cargo wagons with these tarpaulins on top, because I think they look really good. And really, if you go to the ends, let's just have a look at the end. You can just see the ends poking through there. So there we have it. So again, 50% PVA glue mixed with water, some toilet roll, some Tamiya acrylic paint, and you will not go far wrong, and you'll end up with some super loads in whichever scale or gauge you're working, because don't forget, you can work in N gauge, double O gauge, EM gauge, LGB or O gauge, and this method will suit all those different gauges, and it doesn't matter how big your wagons are or how small they are either. So I hope that's been of interest, and we'll take another look at this next week. So here it is, Accurascale's first ever foray into 7mm O gauge diesel locomotives. And I've got to be honest, when this was first announced and the actual model was announced, i.e. a small diesel shunter, I was a bit disappointed because, like most other people, I wanted something big and powerful. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, you know, at the end of the day, this opens such a myriad of possibilities for people who are looking to move into O gauge, or have a really small, what I call a working diorama alongside a double O gauge layout or an N gauge layout. Because, you know, all you need is 4 foot by 5 foot, not even that, and maybe 2 or 3 wagons and one of these little locos, and you can portray something like a, I don't know, a steel stock holders or a brickworks, or in my case, a cement factory. And incidentally, I hope Accurascale aren't wanting this back, because if they do want it back, they're going to be getting it back painted yellow with a big blue circle cement logo on it, because I am going to paint it, because it's going to be pushing PCA tank wagons around my forthcoming cement factory. Anyway, let's move on. The other thing, well, the first thing I want to say is that I'm a real believer in packaging. I love nicely packaged and well thought out products, because I always think that, you know, if something's really well thought out in the packaging department, whatever's inside is being at least as well thought out, if not more. Now, I've already slipped off the sleeve that goes over the box itself. But again, just unpackaging it first, there's loads of information in here about Ruston itself. Oil engine, not diesel actually, it's heavy oil, and there is a difference. Lots of instructions and everything else. I do like this as well. I was just looking at this earlier. Just a nice little card with all the different staff at Accurascale who have all signed it. And it's nice touches like that that really make a difference to me. So opening it up, we've got the shunter inside. I can also feel from the box it's pretty heavy because it has got a die-cast chassis. We're going to come on to the details of it in a minute. But again, these little shunters, they really, really open up so many possibilities. And actually, Ruston and Hornsby itself, they were a Lincolnshire-based company, and they had such a long history. I was just reading as well that even before Rudolf Diesel invented the diesel engine, there were real world pioneers in heavy oil engines way before Rudolf Diesel himself, which is a really interesting tidbit. On top of that, they built Sopwith biplanes in their factory in World War I, and they built tanks in World War II. So, you know, they really have got some history. But if we take the box or unpack it, again, I keep going on about it, but I love all these little bits and pieces. And we've got a really exquisite, heavy, excuse my butterfingers, diesel Loco or heavy oil Loco. We're going to go more on this in a second, because I'm going to explain all the different features it's got before we try and fire it up here on the layout. But look at that. How pretty is that? And you'll see actually a real one popping up on your screen now. Okay, so here we have the little shunter on Heaton Lodge Junction itself, and look how small it is. How cute is that? But before I actually talk about the real Loco here, let's just make it clear that these come in about 6 different liveries. They range from £230 for the non-DCC and sound version, all the way up to £320 for one like this one that's equipped with DCC and sound. But as I said when I was unpackaging it, they open up such a world of possibilities. You just need a really small board and you can shunt away, especially if you've got DCC and sound. You can shunt away all day long over 2 or 3 different points, and hey, you know, what's there not to like about that? This particular one, though, leaving aside the die-cast chassis for a minute, it's a scale length. I know that because I've already measured it. Comes with a choice of couplings, screw link and 3-link couplings. What I like too is the way that the brake blocks are actually aligned with the wheels, which is always nice on a locomotive and a wagon, of course. There's loads of additional detail that I've noticed, and it's got flush glazing, which is nice. A fully detailed cab. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. And of course, it's got sprung buffers too, which is great. So I don't know if I mentioned actually the helical gearbox. It's got a nice helical gearbox, so that'll do really well shunting my little PCA wagons, well, not little, but big PCA wagons around the cement factory complex. And incidentally, I'm hoping that Accurascale don't want this back, because if they do get it back, it's going to be painted in bright yellow with a Blue Circle Cement Factory logo. Now, I don't know if Blue Circle ever made or ever used these industrial shunters, but I'm going to use modeller's license to reckon on that they did. But it's a shame in a way, because this tarmac livery is really well applied. It's beautiful. It's a lovely kind of satin paint, and with a bit of leathering, a bit of weathering, it'll look absolutely superb. So what I'm going to do in a minute is just wire it up to DCC, and we'll see if we can get some sound out of it. That's no reflection on the Loco, it's simply whether I can get some power into this part of the layout, because as you know, I'm building the extension on it too. But all in all, I really like the way this is presented. I like the packaging, I like all the different bits that are added. And obviously I have no affiliation with Accurascale, but it really is a nice little thing. And now I've thought about it, it's a great choice of them to move into O-gauge with such a super little Loco, which will open so many possibilities for so many people to have a little O-gauge layout alongside their double O and N-gauge layouts. So there we go, lovely. Okay, so here is the shunter ensconced on Heaton Lodge Junction. On the scenic side, phase 1 of course, because we're doing the extension on the other side, and I've just been trying to get some juice into the track, but I think I've just about cracked it. So what I'm going to do first is try the lights. Yes, we've got a high intensity, well I don't think it's high intensity lights, I doubt they had them in the 1960s, but certainly a headlight, and let's see what it sounds like. Oh, brilliant. The one thing I love about these little Locos is they sound so different to the usual grids and everything else. In fact, they sound more like an Austin 7, don't they really? Let's pick the horn. Brilliant. Oh, she's moving off. Let's just stop her a minute. No, she'll be going out of camera if I'm not careful. She has. Let's get them going the other way. You can hear those brakes coming on, can't you? Scale speed of 15 miles an hour is the top speed on this too. I've just brought that TTA tank, which I built myself from an unnamed manufacturer's kit, just to kind of show you the scale next to it. Oh, doesn't that sound super? Just imagine what sort of possibilities are opened by these little Locos moving around a little model working diorama, you know, as I've said earlier, steel factory, steel stockholders rather, brick factory. I love the brakes. Hear the gears? Brilliant. Just going out of camera again, sorry. Let's get her moving back. Come on. Just nearly knocked the camera over then. I could just play with this all day, moving around 2 or 3 wagons. Just need a little driver in the cab, of course. But how good is that? Let me just turn it off and we'll end the video on a high note of the little shunter powering down. And there we go. Now at this point we should be going over to the diorama and doing our static grass, which I said in the introduction, and of course the what else are we doing? The unmade surfaces. I've run out of time. I do apologise. Next week we will definitely be doing the diorama again, so we'll catch up with that next week. But thanks again for watching. Again, many thanks for subscribing, all those of you that have done. We're at over 7,000, which is superb. And yeah, I'll see you next week and have a great weekend.